reflective of the feeling of the community that Columbia has gone way too far by saying that the only way they can expand is through this all or nothing position. So I think that in general, Columbia has met with a lot more resistance than they're allowing is out there, and that one way or the other, they're going to pay the price for it, even if they are able to reverse the ruling. They will be paying a heavy price in terms of the future of the university, because I think this essentially challenges the whole concept of free-spirited, independent thinking at a university. So
what do you think, if any, are the positive outcomes going to be if this project is successfully finished?
Well, of course, I don't see a lot of positive outcomes. I see a community which will be further torn asunder, where there will be displacement. Columbia already admits in its environmental impact statement that there will be 5,000 people displaced in a 10-block area over the build-out period. We think that's an underestimate. We've already seen people depressed, people losing their homes, some people so wrapped up in this issue that they have died, and I can explain that, but I think that this notion of taking a community and then dumping 17 acres of huge buildings, bringing in bio-level hazard 3s, digging a huge basement under this 17-acre thing, all of that is going to have an immense negative impact on not only the immediate West Harlem community, but on New York City as a whole.
So please explain what you said you would explain before.
Well, there are two tenant leaders, for example, in the community who have died recently. One up at 3333 Broadway, and she got so wrapped up in trying to do something to defend her tenants. 333 Broadway has faced a lot of evictions, and Columbia students are the ones that are coming in and taking the place. It's a complicated story, but my point is that this is an all or nothing presentation by Columbia, and it's also an all or nothing thing by many people in the community. So it's not to be, well, they can move elsewhere. You're taking it too lightly. People feel very strongly about a neighborhood and about a sense of place where they had their first kiss or they smoked their first cigarette, being destroyed and gone. It's not an insignificant thing where there are these vast choices for people, and I think that it's a very significant change that we are already dealing with, and it takes a lot of wherewithal to be able to stay in this game, to fight for your apartment down in housing court and all the rest, and all that is linked to pressures from the announcement of the Columbia Plan in April 2004. We've seen, I'm in a housing group called the West Harlem Coalition. We've seen tenant complaints, tenant harassment, and all the rest, increase since that period of time. And it's not just the overall gentrification process; it's specifically linked to the Columbia expansion.
So, what should people do that aren't already doing something to try and stop Columbia? What's the best way to let your voice be heard?
I think that giving support to the court case is really essential. We're going to go up to Albany and bring some people up there. That is when there's the hearing in June. I think it's important to let an agency like the Empire State Development Corporation, which is the one that actually is supposedly the decision maker on eminent domain. I think it's important to let them know that the nefarious means they used to be in collusion with Columbia, and the word collusion is a word from the actual Judge Catterson's ruling here, because ESDC actually bent over backwards to keep information away from, you know, the people who were fighting against the eminent domain ruling and in doing the legal work. It kept information, freedom of information request documents that would have been part and could have been part of the case. ESDC allowed Columbia's highfalutin lawyers to use delay tactics to keep that information out of the court case. And aside from colluding on the notion of that this is a blighted area and other things that were cited by the judge. So I think there's a lot of ways in which we can put pressure on the agencies and the elected officials to speak out. But in the end, it's a combination of being a presence in the street, that is protesting, talking to students and all the rest, talking to everybody in the neighborhood, and along with the legal legal case. And of course, we don't have any control over the legal case, so the only thing you can do there is to support them.
Right. So what do you think that I haven't covered and you haven't covered that you should say?
I think that it's hard to understand from a point of view of someone who is not in the immediate West Harlem neighborhood why people might complain about a university expanding. I told you in the beginning that when you asked me what I do, well, I like to write poems and play the piano, and I also like to study languages. That's what I like to do. Those are the grist of the mill for someone who would love the concept of a university. So, you know, I too love the idea of a university, of a college. I even went to Columbia way back when. But the point is that I think what's important for a university to understand, especially in a world that is so dominated by inequity, so dominated by racism, so dominated by a class society, I think it's important for a university to recognize those 2 points, and they're not doing that. This expansion has, you know, underlying highly racist underpinnings. It also is, even the judge's ruling, he described this as it benefits a private university. It's an elitist benefit thing here, not a public benefit. And so I think people need to understand that Columbia is really falling down here. They're not responding to standards of the high standards that we would want from people who are seeking intellectual truth and who are seeking to preserve the best in culture. They're doing precisely the opposite by expanding the way they are. So that's I think an important point that people they don't get, and they should. And look, we're fighting for our homes here, and we're fighting for our community, and we're fighting for the community of Harlem.
So give just a quick exit, or not quick, but anything else that you want to add before.
Well, the way that we are at a severe disadvantage when we're up against Columbia University. President Bollinger is on Channel 13 selling his book on the First Amendment a couple of months ago. He was asked a question by Charlie Rose about the expansion, but he dodged that, and Rose didn't challenge him. Columbia has an immense PR group up in Low Library that are, from our point of view, manipulating the press, keeping our point of view out of the press. And I think that it's very hard for us to be able to get our message out there because Columbia you know, even